Hello, Los Angeles! We're joined today by a very special guest, the first boot of season 47 of Survivor. That is Pundit's costume. Pretty good. Pretty good. Don't touch her. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Welcome to Love It or Leave It. We're recording on Halloween, and while my producers said I should spook up the show, I think me talking on this stage 5 days out from the election and 4 months out of therapy is more than enough. Also, go Dodgers! But first, let's get into it. What a week. With polls closing in roughly 100 hours, that's right, Kamala Harris has been closing with a hopeful and unifying message meant to convince the last remaining undecided voters in 7 swing states to break her way. Meanwhile, Trump and his allies are helpfully laying out in vivid detail just how destructive a second term would be. That started with Obamacare, with House Speaker Mike Johnson promising to dismantle the Affordable Care Act on Wednesday.
There's a lot of talk. I mean, healthcare reform is going to be a big part of the agenda. And,
no Obamacare?
No Obamacare. Yeah, the ACA is so deeply ingrained. We need massive reform to make this work, and we got a lot of ideas on how to do that.
We got a lot of ideas, a big list of ideas. What if instead of coverage for pre-existing conditions, you could transfer Delta Sky miles to a health savings account? What if instead of lowering the Medicare eligibility to 55, we raise the Medicare eligibility to whatever age gets you a shout out from Smuckers? What if we replace subsidies for entrepreneurs and the self-employed with, hear me out, nothing? Kamala Harris highlighted Johnson's comments in a press conference, which led to Trump issuing what may be one of the most brazen lies he's ever told, which is saying something, claiming it was a lie that he wants to end the Affordable Care Act, saying, "I never mentioned doing that. I never even thought about such a thing." Here is a montage of Trump saying he is going to repeal Obamacare dozens of times. Oh wait, we're a podcast, and I'm not going to ask somebody to produce that montage when you all fucking know how he said it 1,000,000 times. Picture it in your mind. Donald Trump campaigned on repeal in 2016. Trump had such a hard-on for repealing the Affordable Care Act, he did a fake signing ceremony when repeal passed the House. Here's a picture. Trump signed an executive order saying it is the policy of my administration to seek the prompt repeal of the Affordable Care Act. The Trump administration also asked the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act, and his administration tried to sabotage Obamacare from the inside, including drastically cutting outreach during enrollment periods. But it wasn't just the tens of millions of Americans who rely on the protections of the Affordable Care Act threatened by a second Trump term this week. Elon Musk acknowledged that electing Donald Trump would tank the economy, admitting that tariffs, mass deportations, and Elon's pledge to cut $2 trillion from the budget would cause what he described as temporary hardship, agreeing there might even be a huge financial panic. Rockets, cars, social media platforms, economies, what can't this guy crash? He is truly our Da Vinci of dog shit. And as reported by the Washington Post, which we should all still be subscribed to. Did anyone here cancel? All right. According to a report by the Washington Post, corporations are already planning to raise prices next year on, quote, a range of items, including clothing, footwear, baby products, auto parts, and hardware, promising to pass along the cost of tariffs to American consumers. People loved paying more for everything when a global pandemic disrupted the supply chain, and they're going to love it even more when it's for no fucking reason. So we have dismantling the Affordable Care Act. We have higher costs and economic chaos because of tariffs and mass deportations. But wait, there's more. On Monday, Trump supporter and dangerous crank Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claimed that Trump promised to give him control of the Department of Agriculture and the entirety of the Department of Health and Human Services. This echoes what Trump told his supporters at Madison Square Garden.
I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines.
And don't worry, RFK Jr. has big plans for food and medicine.
The key that I think that President Trump has promised me is control of the public health agencies, which are HHS and its sub-agencies, CDC, FDA, NIH, and a few others, and then also the USDA.
So there's already reporting that because they don't know that RFK Jr. could be confirmed by the Senate because he is a crank dilettante, They will make him some kind of a White House czar overseeing those departments. RFK Jr. personally stoked the anti-vaccine fervor that helped produce an outbreak of measles in Samoa that killed 83 people, a catastrophe from which he learned nothing. If Trump wins, this could be as dangerous as any decision Trump makes. Trump transition co-chair Howard Lutnick went on CNN and said he talked to RFK Jr. for 2.5 hours this week and now is convinced vaccines aren't safe.
So I spent 2.5 hours this week with Bobby Kennedy Jr. And what he explained was when he was born, we had 3 vaccines, and autism was 1 in 10,000. Now a baby's born with 76 vaccines.
RFK Jr. is a vaccine skeptic. He pushes lies about vaccines. And I don't even think if Republicans...
Why do you think he pushes lies? Why you said, you said I'm not a scientist and you aren't. So
but
he just wants
scientists
data.
say he pushes lies.
He says, if you give me the data, all I want is the data, and I'll take on the data and show that it's not safe. And then if you pull the product liability, the companies will yank these vaccines right off of the market. So,
ever wonder why kids are so much smaller than adults? That's the vaccines. It's time to admit that RFK Jr. has a secret charisma that we do not understand. He turns a Trump advisor anti-vax in one conversation. Cheryl Hines has been married to this guy for a decade. Does this man smell incredible? What's happening? Anyway, if crashing the economy wasn't enough, if dismantling the healthcare system wasn't enough, if controlling women's bodies wasn't enough, we can now add mumps, measles, polio, and whooping cough to the mix. And these aren't just dangerous and stupid ideas. These are deeply unpopular ideas because most parents aren't cranks and most parents do not want to worry when their kids go to school that their kids will be exposed to dangerous, deadly, preventable illnesses. And if you are hearing this, and if you know someone in your life who is on the fence about voting for Kamala, make sure they understand just how scary this is. No vaccines do not cause autism, and if they did, that's how we're going to get high-speed trains. And by the way, RFK Jr. is not a blip here. It's not a sudden emergence of anti-vax bullshit in the Trump administration or in the Trump campaign. Trump himself has already promised to get rid of vaccine mandates in the schools. And he is purposely not saying COVID. He is purposely saying vaccines writ large, leaving it open to interpretation. So right now, what is Trump promising? He's promising some kind of a hell czar who will possibly revoke safe, effective vaccines, a miracle that made the modern world fucking possible, one of the greatest achievements in human history, gone. He is saying he's going to get rid of the Department of Education. He is going to get rid of vaccine mandates, and he's going to cut education funding in half. These are toxic positions. The Trump campaign, as an organization, if it has one function, its function is to obfuscate and create enough noise to make the American people unaware of the choice in this election. The Harris-Walz campaign, their fundamental task is to make those stakes clear. And because they have bought their own bullshit, their own misreading of early vote, their fake polls, their lies about election thieving, they are now convinced themselves that they are now free in these last few days to let the mask slip and tell us what they're going to do. But there are people right now in your life, there are friends of friends who are not aware of just how serious this is. They are imagining a Trump administration like the first Trump administration. Now, that was terrible. That was awful. But it was still an administration in which it was staffed by the kind of Republican institutionalists that prevented Trump's worst excesses. Those people are gone. It's RFK Jr.'s all the way down now. And there are people in your life that don't understand that. And I genuinely believe that if over the next 3 to 4 days, when you're hearing this, enough of us beseech the people we know, kindly, warmly, without judgment, to explain why we feel so deeply about this, why we are scared and we want them to vote with us. If they are not sure, to ask them to trust us, to believe us when we tell them that we are worried for the future of this country and to stand with us this one time. If we can do that, I think we will win. But not enough people right now understand how dangerous this is. We talk all the time. How is it possible? How is it possible? Why is it so close? Why is it so close? Because not enough people know. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of very frustrating, long-lasting reasons for that. But if they know, they'd be with us. That is a reason to be frustrated, but it is a reason to be hopeful. So if you're hearing this on Saturday, you have this whole weekend to reach out to people, to make calls, to knock on doors. You have Monday to reach out to people, to make calls, to knock on doors, to get this in front of the people in your life. This is our last chance. Okay. I'm only going to do that 3 more times tonight. Okay. And finally, here in the home stretch, Republican men are also letting the mask slip when it comes to their thoughts on women and their various opinions. This follows reports that women are dominating early votes so far, with 54% of ballots cast coming from women compared to 44% for men. It's like they always say, women do come earlier than men. Nope. I don't think something like that. I don't know. Not really my culture. There was also this ad voiced by Julia Roberts that sent conservatives into a tailspin.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
And I'd point out this echoes what Liz Cheney said, reminding Republicans that the ballot is a secret ballot, and reports out of Pennsylvania of women sticking Post-it notes in women's restrooms saying the same. Meanwhile, in men's restrooms, little drops of piss everywhere. Not sure which campaign is behind that. Not sure how organized it is. Charlie Kirk ranted to Megyn Kelly that this is encouraging women to undermine their husbands, which he says is the embodiment of the downfall of the American family.
This wife is wearing you'll show it, wearing the American hat. She's coming in with her sweet husband, who probably works his tail off to make sure that she can go, and have a nice life and provides for the family. And then she lies to him saying, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. And then she votes for Kamala Harris as her little secret in the voting booth.
Isn't it interesting that the husband isn't undermining her? I wonder why that is. A woman voting against her husband's wishes? What's next? A woman having her own credit card? After all, a wife isn't a person. A wife is a husband expansion pack whose personal opinions end at color of Stanley Cup. That's something you get to choose. You should be grateful. They come in so many colors. And if you want an Owala, you can switch the caps at the Target. You don't go to jail. And you should be happy. It's a nice life. Find out what happened in the world when your husband gets home, sipping on your Stanley Cup in a mauve. Fox News' Jesse Waters had this to say about conservative women secretly voting for Kamala.
And if I found out Emma was going into the voting booth and pulling the lever for Harris, that's the same thing as having an affair. That, to me...
Oh, my God.
Let him finish.
Good one, Jesse, said his ex-wife. Not one to miss all the fun, Trump at a rally in North Carolina reminded everyone just how much he cares about women.
And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not.
Yeah, we know, man. Several juries came to the same conclusion. And then you have J.D. Vance on Rogan in this darling exchange.
Roe v. Wade had always been the law of the land, and then all of a sudden that was taken away. And you have these religious men who are trying to dictate what women can and can't do with their bodies.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, again, I understand that. I understand the pushback against that, but I think you can go, like with so many other issues, you can go way too far about it, and it becomes trying to celebrate something that at the very best, if you grant, I think, every argument of the pro-choice side, it is a neutral thing, not something to be celebrated.
I think there's very few people that are celebrating.
Joe Rogan, welcome to the resistance. In that same interview, Vance also made this odd prediction.
I wouldn't be surprised if me and Trump won just the normal gay guy vote, because, again, they just wanted to be left the hell alone.
You may ask yourself, who is the normal gay guy? Just spitballing, but I think he's referring to gay men who have stayed current with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sorry, producer Chris. Well, I do want to talk about what that is, and that is a rich text, and I want to be careful with how I say what I'm about to say, which is just there are gay little gay boys who emerge from the closet fully formed, comfortable or more comfortable with themselves and their gayness, but there are gay guys who have to shed some homophobia that they have internalized throughout their closeted years. And it can manifest in a lot of ways, one of which is, oh, like I'm a gay guy, but I'm not like those pride parade gay guys. I'm just like a normal guy. That's too much for me. It's all too much for me. And maybe that is who you are, right? You're not somebody who is flamboyant. You don't ascribe to all these other qualities that are associated with being gay, but you also have a kind of slight revulsion towards them because of a certain amount of internalized hatred. And over time, I think a lot of gay people come to learn that that's something that they were doing. They kind of coming out as a process that takes not just a conversation, but decades to kind of fully be comfortable with who you are. And it is just so interesting to see someone like J.D. Vance so capture that idea so clearly. There's a lie in there. There's a lie in his eyes. Infects everything he does. You're going to be the best boy, aren't you, J.D. Vance? You're going to grow up and you're going to be the best one. And you're going to show all of them, aren't you? You can go all the way to the FBI. Anyway, the culmination of all of this was, of course, Trump himself delivering a powerful closing message of his own in North Carolina.
I'm not Hitler.
Okay. And it's true. Hitler could paint. It was a message Trump also hammered home at a Georgia rally earlier in the week when he said, "I am the opposite of a Nazi." So that would make him a negative Nazi, which would mean Trump times a Nazi is negative Nazi squared. But then the square root of Trump times a Nazi is the square root of negative Nazi squared, which is simply a Nazi times I, which would mean we are now on the complex Nazi plane, which is, in a sense, where we started. Was that for anyone? No? All right. Also this week, Trump bid it trying to climb into a Trump-branded garbage truck in Wisconsin. Afterward, Trump sat in the passenger seat of the garbage truck as it drove circles around an empty airport tarmac. Or as the Trump campaign puts it, trying to get Donald down for a nap. Later, at the rally in Green Bay, Donald Trump reminisced about getting into the garbage truck.
So look, the first stair is like up here. I'm saying, shit. So I had the adrenaline going and I made it.
We're lucky he's too broken to be self-deprecating more, because that works. that was endearing. Don't show anybody that. Just send him the vaccine stuff. Anyway, it sounds like somebody had a really big day, and did they let you honk the horn too? All right. So that's how Trump is finishing strong. And in the other corner, we have Kamala Harris, who gave an address at the Ellipse in Washington with more than 75,000 people in attendance. Kamala sure can draw a crowd. She can draw a clock, too. Draws all the important stuff. Harris contrasted herself with Trump from the very spot where he incited the January 6th attack.
This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are.
Now let's go storm the Capitol. All right. Harris emphasized the darkness of Trump's comments about the enemy from within and offered an alternative.
Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe People who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table.
You'll be sitting by the speakers and next to Joe Biden, but it's at the table. You know, sometimes you'll be at a wedding and it's like there's the tent at the wedding and then they needed a couple more tables. So there's another little tent like attached to the main tent. And, you know, it's office people, it's former colleagues and second cousins in there. And there'll be a seat at that table. It'll be at the main table. The Harris campaign also launched the first ever political ad on the Las Vegas Sphere, which will run through Election Day. Just what a USC frat bro wants to see at 4 a.m. coming out of a strip club on the worst cocaine come down of his life, a 400-foot prosecutor. Kamala also added to her support a few Republican leaders with a shred of dignity and patriotism left in their bodies, including former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. I believe we actually have a clip of Harris securing that endorsement.
Son of a bitch.
By the way, I didn't know until seeing that clip that that's where the meme comes from. So cool. Schwarzenegger explained that while he still considers himself a Republican, he must do what the Sphere commands. Wrote Schwarzenegger on Twitter, "I will always be an American before I am a Republican. That is why this week I am voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I'm sharing it with all of you because I think there are a lot of you who feel like I do. You don't recognize our country and you are right to be furious." Added Arnold, "I also believe in a woman's right to hasta la vista, their baby." Sorry. We're doing the best we can here. Joe Biden is also helping. He decided to enter the fray with this comment on Puerto Rico.
They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
Still got it. As Republicans pretended to be outraged by this, Vice President Harris addressed the comment to the press on Wednesday.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for.
Then Kamala walked into the Oval Office with a special ice cream cone just for Joe Biden, laced with enough Benadryl to keep him down till Wednesday. So one Benadryl. As Kamala attempts to inspire people to vote while relying on millions of volunteers to talk to their friends and neighbors, the Trump campaign has outsourced its field operation to Elon Musk. And wouldn't you know it, news broke this week that paid canvassers and door knockers who were hired by a subcontractor for Elon Musk's America PAC were driven around Michigan in the back of a seatless U-Haul and told their motel rooms wouldn't be paid for if they didn't meet unrealistic canvassing quotas. Said an America PAC spokesperson, these canvassers were treated the way Elon Musk would treat his own children. In a good way, I mean, the ones he likes. Let me start over. One canvasser said they had no idea they were signing up to knock doors in support of Trump when they signed up until after signing an NDA. "Oh, I thought we were just going to get murdered. Fuck that. I'm not doing this." And these are really the best messengers in the final days of an election, people who have been hoodwinked and jolted around the back of a U-Haul and are only there for the money. These are the people who voters want to hear from. That's it. Listen, great. The second I saw this, that Elon Musk was putting together a slapdash last-minute field organization with paid canvassers, I was like, fucking great. Just finding out when you're handed the fucking clipboard that you're canvassing for Donald Trump, you think it's going to be a persuasive conversation people are going to have at the doors compared to a fucking middle-aged wine mom from Ohio who drove all the way to Michigan to knock on doors because she hasn't been able to unclench her fucking asshole since 2016. I like that competition. Speaking of people who have had a rough ride, 3 NASA astronauts and 1 Russian cosmonaut finally returned to Earth from the International Space Station 2 months after their scheduled departure. The 2 astronauts are now safely back at Cape Canaveral, while the cosmonaut was returned to the Ukrainian front. Tough joke. Timothée Chalamet made a surprise appearance at this week's Timothée Chalamet Lookalike Contest in Washington Square Park in the Village. I was also there. You probably didn't realize it, because I fit in so well. Police eventually shut down the event, leading one Timothy away in cuffs after the sheer volume of Chalamets turned the contest into, as one organizer put it, pandemonium. We'll all remember where we were when we first heard about the Timsurrection. Police said they would have been able to get the mayhem under control sooner, but the handcuffs kept slipping off their wrists. They're men, but they're so beautiful, said one arresting police officer. But they're men. I gotta go home and fuck my wife. On The Tonight Show, Olivia Rodrigo reminisced about knowing Chappell Roan way back when.
I love her. I used to go visit her when she worked at a donut shop before she got signed, before she put out any of her music. I used to go and eat donuts with her and hang out. And so I'm so happy for her. Is that fun?
Chappell Roan issued this response. That's nice of you to say, Olivia. Nice of you to say, but it's a long time ago. You might not have heard Olivia. I don't work at the donut shop anymore. Been a long time. They moved me to a bigger stage at Lollapalooza. I know you're just breaking my balls, but that's a long time ago. I'm leaving that in. That didn't work. I don't care. That was for me. Olivia Rodrigo. I'm just joking around. Just joking around. Really was it? Hey, go get your. All right. It's from Goodfellas. It's a famous scene. And finally, a leading cheese retailer in London announced last week that someone had stolen 950 wheels of artisanal cheddars, more than 24 tons of cheese, worth more than $389,000. The suspect remains at large. Oh, I'm sorry. The suspect remains dead next to a toilet.
It's love it or leave it.